Officer Greg Bella thought he had chosen the perfect victim, a black woman alone, driving a luxury car through his district. He planted the evidence, twisted the narrative, and slapped the cuffs on her wrists with a smirk, convinced she was just another statistic he could bully. He didn't know that the woman he was framing wasn't just a civilian. She was Captain Nia Reynolds, the incoming precinct commander, sent to clean up his department. And the body cam footage he tried to delete, it was already streaming directly to Internal Affairs. Watch closely, because the moment he finds out who she really is will be the most satisfying thing you see today. The late afternoon sun glared off the hood of the silver Mercedes-Benz E-Class as it cruised down Sycamore Avenue. Inside, Nia Reynolds adjusted her sunglasses, tapping her fingers lightly against the steering wheel to the rhythm of a jazz track playing softly. She wasn't in uniform. Today she was just a woman, moving to a new city, trying to get a feel for the neighborhood, before her life turned upside down on Monday morning. Nia had just transferred from Chicago PD, where she'd earned a reputation as a fixer, a no-nonsense administrator who rooted out corruption with surgical precision. But here in the quiet, affluent suburb of Oak Creek, she was an unknown entity. And to the patrol car sitting in the shade of a billboard, she was something else, entirely a target. Officer Greg Bella sat in his cruiser, chewing on a toothpick. He was a 15-year veteran of the force, a man who believed the badge on his chest gave him the authority of a king. He watched the Mercedes pass. "Nice ride," his partner rookie, Officer Ben Miller, muttered from the passenger seat. "Too nice," Bella grunted, sitting up straighter. "Out-of-state plates, Illinois. Window tint looks illegal." "It looks legal to me, Greg," Miller said tentatively. Miller was 23, fresh out of the academy, and still had a conscience that Bella was actively trying to break. "You need to get your eyes checked. Rookie," Bella said, throwing the cruiser into gear. "That's probable cause. Let's see what she's hiding." Nia saw the lights flash in her rearview mirror. She sighed, glancing at her speedometer. She was doing exactly the speed limit, 35 miles per hour. She signaled, pulled over smoothly to the curb, and lowered all four windows, a habit from years of training designed to put officers at ease. She placed her hands on the top of the steering wheel and waited. Bella took his time getting out. He adjusted his belt, puffed out his chest, and sauntered toward the driver's side, his hand resting casually near his holster. He didn't approach with caution. He approached with ownership. "License and registration," Bella barked before he even reached the window. Nia turned her head, slowly keeping her hands visible. "Good afternoon, officer. Is there a problem?" "I didn't ask for a weather report. I asked for your license and registration," Bella snapped, leaning down to peer into the car. His eyes scanned the leather interior, the boxes in the back seat, and finally rested on Nia's face. He sneered. "Whose car is this?" "It's mine," Nia said calmly. She knew the type. She'd fired a dozen men like Bella over the years. The aggression, the immediate attempt to dominate the interaction, it was textbook insecurity, masked as authority. "I'm reaching into my glove box for my documents." Slowly, Bella warned his hand, tightening on his weapon. Nia moved with deliberate slowness, retrieving the registration and her driver's license. She handed them over. Bella snatched them, glancing at the ID and then back at her. "Nia Reynolds," he read aloud, mocking the name. "Chicago, huh? Long way from home. What are you doing in Oak Creek?" "Nia, I just moved here," she replied, her voice steady, devoid of fear. That seemed to irritate him. He wanted fear. He thrived on it. "Moved here into this neighborhood." Bella laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "This is a high-end area. Property taxes alone would bankrupt most people. What do you do for a living that affords you a car like this and a house around here?" "I work for the city," Nia said vaguely. She wasn't ready to play her card yet. She wanted to see how far he would go. The city, Bella scoffed. What, you a sanitation worker lottery winner? Officer, why did you pull me over? Nia asked, cutting through his taunts. Bella's face hardened. He leaned in closer, his breath smelling of stale coffee and mints. You got an attitude, don't you? I pulled you over because your tint is too dark. And you were weaving. I wasn't weaving, Nia corrected him firmly. And this tint is factory standard 35%, perfectly legal in this state. Are you a lawyer now? Bella shouted, stepping back and putting a hand on his radio. Don't you tell me the law. Step out of the car. For what reason? Because I said so. Bella yelled, his face turning red. Step out of the vehicle now, or I will drag you out. Nia looked at him, really looked at him. She memorized his nameplate, G. Bella. She noted his badge number, 4922. She saw the slight tremor in his hand, not from fear, but from adrenaline. He was escalating, looking for a fight. Okay, Nia said softly. She unbuckled her seatbelt and opened the door. As Nia stepped out of the car, she smoothed down her blazer. She stood 5'9", athletic and poised. She towered over many people in presence alone, but Bella was a big man, heavy-set, and used to using his bulk to intimidate. Turn around, face the vehicle, hands on the roof, Bella commanded. Nia complied. Officer, I am cooperating. I have no weapons on me. We'll see about that, Bella muttered. He began a pat-down that was aggressive and borderline inappropriate. He patted her waist, her hips lingering uncomfortably. Nia's jaw tightened, but she remained silent. Any reaction now would give him the excuse he needed to slam her face into the metal. Rookie Officer Miller was standing by the passenger side looking nervous. Greg, maybe we should just write the ticket and go, Miller suggested. She seems clean. Shut up, Miller, Bella hissed over his shoulder. I know a mule when I see one. Nice car, vague job description, attitude. She's running something. Bella finished the pat-down and spun Nia around. Stand right here. Don't move a muscle. He dove into the driver's seat of her car. Nia watched as he began tossing her belongings. He opened the center console, throwing her phone charger and sunglasses into the passenger seat. He ripped open the glove box, scattering papers on the floor mats. Officer, you do not have consent to search my vehicle, Nia stated clearly, her voice projecting, so the dash cam on the cruiser would pick it up. I have probable cause, Bella yelled from inside the car. I smelled marijuana. You did not, Nia said. I don't smoke, and this is a non-smoking rental while my car is being shipped. I smell what I smell, Bella retorted. He was digging under the seats now. Nia watched her heart rate steady, but her anger rising like a tide. She knew exactly what was happening. He wasn't finding anything, and that was making him desperate. A clean search meant he looked like a fool. He needed a win. Bella emerged from the car, red-faced and sweating. He hadn't found a crumb. He glared at Nia, his eyes darting around the street. It was mostly empty, just a few cars passing by. Turn around, he ordered again. Officer, if you're finished, I'd like to leave, Nia said. Turn around. He screamed, grabbing her shoulder and spinning her forcefully. Nia felt his hand fumble at his own belt. It was a move she had seen in training videos on what not to do. He reached into one of his utility pouches, not where evidence bags were kept, but a personal pouch. What is this? Bella shouted triumphantly a second later. Nia turned her head. In Bella's hand was a small, clear plastic baggie containing a white, powdery substance. I found this under your driver's seat, Bella lied, holding it up to the dash cam. Cocaine. Possession with intent to distribute. Nia stared at the bag. It was amateur hour. The bag was pristine, unwrinkled. It hadn't been jammed under a seat track for months. It had just been pulled from a pocket. "That is not mine," Nia said, her voice dropping an octave, becoming deadly serious. "Officer Bella, I want you to think very carefully about what you are doing right now. You are making a mistake that you cannot undo." "Is that a threat?" Bella laughed, pulling his handcuffs from his belt. "You threatening an officer, that's another charge." "It's not a threat," Nia said, her eyes locking onto his. "It's a professional courtesy. Put that bag away, get back in your car and drive away. If you cuff me, you end your career." Bella's face twisted into a sneer. He hated her confidence. He hated that she wasn't begging, crying, or screaming. "You're done, lady," Bella growled. He grabbed her wrist and twisted it behind her back, harder than necessary. "You're under arrest for possession of a controlled substance, resisting arrest and threatening a police officer." The cold steel of the handcuffs clicked shut around Nia's wrists. Miller walked over, looking pale. "Greg, are you sure I didn't see you pull that from under the seat?" "I said I found it, didn't I?" Bella snapped at his partner. "You want to write the report, or should I get her in the back?" Bella shoved Nia toward the cruiser. He pushed her head down roughly as he forced her into the cramped back seat. The hard plastic seat was uncomfortable, the cage separating her from the front, smelling of disinfectant and old sweat. As Bella slammed the door, he leaned down to the window, grinning. "Welcome to the neighborhood, Nia. You're going to love our jail cells." Nia sat back against the plastic. She closed her eyes for a brief second, centering herself. Then she opened them and looked directly at the internal camera facing the back seat. "Officer 4922, she whispered to herself. "You just arrested your new captain." The ride to the 4th Precinct was a masterclass in corruption. From the back seat, Nia listened as Officer Bella coached Rookie Miller on how to falsify the arrest report. It wasn't a whisper. Bella spoke with the brazen volume of a man who believed he was untouchable. "Write down that she was erratic," Bella instructed, steering the cruiser with one hand while tapping his temple with the other. "Erratic lane changes. Slurred speech. When I approached the vehicle, she made a furtive movement toward the floorboard. That justifies the search." "But she didn't slur, Greg," Miller said, his voice small. "And she was doing the speed limit." "Miller, are you a cop or a social worker?" Bella snapped, glancing at the rookie. "If you don't write what I tell you, the charge won't stick. And if the charge doesn't stick, she sues the department." "Do you want to be the reason the precinct gets sued? Do you want the chief on your back?" Nia sat silently, memorizing every word. In Chicago, she had worn a wire to catch dirty cops. Here, she didn't need one. Bella was handing her his badge on a silver platter. "And make sure you mention the attitude," Bella added, chuckling. "Disorderly conduct. Resisting." She tensed up when I cuffed her. "That's resisting." When they pulled into the precinct's sally port, the heavy metal garage doors rolled down, sealing them inside. Bella hauled Nia out of the car. He didn't guide her. He yanked her. He paraded her through the back entrance past the break room, where other officers were drinking coffee and laughing. "What did you catch, Bella?" A sergeant called out a man with graying hair and a gut that strained his uniform buttons. "Big fish," Bella bragged, shoving Nia forward. "Interstate drug runner. Fancy car, Illinois plates. Found a bag of snow under the seat. Probably moving product to the suburbs." The sergeant looked at Nia. For a second, Nia thought he might see something: her posture, the intelligent fire in her eyes, the fact that her blazer cost more than his monthly mortgage. But he just shrugged. "Book her. Don't let her lawyer up until she cools off in the tank. You hear that, Nia?" Bella whispered in her ear, his breath hot and moist. "No lawyers yet. Just you and us." They took her to the booking desk. The fluorescent lights hummed with a headache-inducing buzz. Naya stood tall as they emptied her pockets, her wallet, her keys, her phone. "Unlock the phone," Bella demanded. "No," Nia said calmly. Bella slammed the phone onto the counter. "Fine, we'll get a warrant. We'll rip through every text, every photo. We're going to find your supplier." He grabbed her hand to ink her fingers for printing. He pressed down hard, grinding her knuckles against the scanner. Nia didn't flinch. She stared at the wall at a poster outlining the core values of the Police Department Integrity Service. Respect. The irony burned in her chest like acid. "Mugshot," Bella barked. She stood against the height chart. Click, profile, click, front. In the photo, Naya didn't look like a criminal. She looked like a predator, waiting for the cage to open. They didn't give her a phone call. Not immediately. They claimed the phones were down for maintenance, a lie so old it had dust on it. They put her in a holding cell with a woman who was coming down off a heroin high and a teenager who had been picked up for shoplifting. The cell smelled of urine and industrial bleach. There was no bench, just a concrete ledge. Nia sat down, folding her hands in her lap. Bella came by every hour to taunt her. It was a power trip. He wanted to see her cry. He wanted her to beg for a deal. "You know," Bella said, leaning against the bars around 9 p.m. on Friday, sipping a soda, "if you tell me who you work for, maybe I can talk to the DA, get the charges reduced to simple possession. You don't have to go to prison, Nia. You're a pretty woman. Prison isn't kind to pretty women." Nia looked up at him. "Officer Bella, I have a question for you." "Yeah, what's that? Do you own your home or do you rent?" Bella blinked, confused by the question. "I own it." "Why?" "Good," Nia said efficiently. "You should probably contact a realtor. You're going to need to sell it to pay for your legal defense." Bella laughed so hard he choked on his soda. "You think you can sue me? You're a drug dealer. Who's a jury going to believe a decorated officer with 15 years on the force or a woman with a bag of coke in her car?" "We'll see," Nia said, returning her gaze to the floor. She spent the night in the cell. She didn't sleep. She spent the hours building her case. She replayed the traffic stop. She analyzed Miller's hesitation. She catalogued the sergeant's indifference. This wasn't just Bella. The sergeant was negligent. The rookie was complicit through silence. The entire shift was infected. Saturday morning came. Finally a different officer. A young woman who looked tired allowed Nia her phone call. Nia didn't call a bail bondsman. She dialed a private number. "This is Mayor Davidson," a voice answered. "Mr. Mayor," Nia said, her voice crisp and commanding. "This is Nia Reynolds." "Nia, good Lord, where are you? We expected you at the dinner last night. The chief was worried." "I'm currently a guest of the 4th Precinct," Nia said dryly. "I've been arrested by one of my future subordinates for possession of cocaine." There was a long silence on the other end. Then an explosion of confusion. "What, that's insane. I'll call Chief O'Connor right now. We'll get you out in 10 minutes. I'll have that officer's badge by lunch." "No," Nia cut in sharply. "Do not call the chief. Do not come down here. Do not blow my cover. Nia, you can't stay in jail. I'm posting bail through my attorney in an hour, but I want this to play out. I want to walk into that station on Monday morning exactly as planned. If you pull me out now, they'll claim it was political favoritism. They'll cover it up. I need to catch them in the lie." "You want to let them think they booked a drug dealer all weekend?" "Exactly," Nia said. "I want to see the look on Officer Bella's face when he realizes who I am. And I want to do it in front of the entire squad." "You're a terrifying woman, Nia," the mayor said. Okay, Monday morning, 8 a.m. I'll be there with the chief to do the formal introduction. Perfect. Nia hung up. An hour later, her personal attorney arrived looking horrified and posted her bail. As she walked out of the station, Bella was at the front desk, feet up on the counter. "Leaving so soon?" he called out. "Don't leave town, Nia. We'll be watching you." Nia stopped at the door. She turned and gave him a small, cryptic smile. "I'm not going anywhere, officer. I'll see you very soon." Monday morning broke with a heavy rain, the sky a bruised purple. Inside the 4th precinct, the mood was lethargic. The coffee was brewing, and the night shift was swapping over to the day shift. Officer Greg Bella was in high spirits. He was leaning against the filing cabinets in the bullpen, recounting his Friday glory to a group of officers. "So she looks at me," Bella said, mimicking a feminine voice, and says, "You'll regret this." Can you believe the nerve? These people come into our town, drive cars worth more than our pensions, and act like they run the place. "Did you get the lab results back on the powder?" Miller asked nervously from his desk. "Who cares?" Bella waved him off. "It looked like coke. It tested blue on the field kit, which I made sure it did, and that's enough for the charge. By the time the lab comes back in 6 weeks, she'll have already pled out to avoid jail time. That's how the game is played, rookie." Attention. The room snapped to silence. Chief O'Connor walked in. The chief was a tall, stern man who rarely came down to the bullpen unless something big was happening. Behind him stood Mayor Davidson. Bella straightened his tie. He puffed his chest out. The mayor is here, he thought. Maybe they're here to commend me for the bust. "At ease," Chief O'Connor said, though his face was tight with suppressed rage. "Gather round. Everyone." The officers formed a semicircle. Bella made sure to stand at the front, right next to Miller. "As you know," the chief began, his eyes scanning the room, "Captain Henderson retired last month. We have conducted a nationwide search for his replacement. We needed someone with a specific skill set, someone who specializes in internal integrity, high-risk tactical operations, and community policing." Bella smirked. He hoped the new captain was a hard-liner, someone who would let him do his work without interference. "She comes to us from Chicago, PD," the mayor added, stepping forward. "She was the youngest deputy chief in that department's history. She has a record of cleaning up tough precincts." Bella frowned slightly. A female captain. He rolled his eyes internally. Great. Probably some affirmative action hire. "She arrived in town last Friday." The chief continued, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. "She wanted to get the lay of the land before taking command. Unfortunately, her welcome to our city was eventful." Bella felt a sudden cold prickle on the back of his neck. "Arrived Friday, Illinois. I'd like to introduce your new commanding officer," the chief said, stepping aside and gesturing toward the closed door of the captain's office. "Captain Nia Reynolds." The door opened. The sound of rain against the windows seemed to vanish, replaced by a silence so profound it felt like a vacuum. Nia Reynolds stepped out. She wasn't wearing the blazer and jeans from Friday. She was in a crisp white dress shirt with gold captain's bars gleaming on the collar. Her navy blue uniform pants were perfectly pressed. Her hair was pulled back in a tight, severe bun. But it was the face. The same face Bella had sneered at. The same face he had laughed at while she sat in a cage. She walked to the center of the room, her boots clicking rhythmically on the linoleum. She stopped directly in front of the chief, saluted sharply, and then turned to face the squad. Her eyes swept the room. They didn't stop on the sergeant. They didn't stop on the rookie. They locked directly onto Officer Greg Bella. Bella's face drained of blood. He went ghost white. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His knees actually wobbled. "Good morning," Captain Reynolds said. Her voice was calm, but it carried a weight that crushed the air out of the room. "My name is Captain Reynolds. I am looking forward to working with most of you." She took a slow step toward Bella. The crowd of officers instinctively parted, leaving Bella isolated like a diseased animal. "Officer 4922, Naya said softly. Bella was trembling now. He couldn't help it. The realization of what he had done crashed down on him. He hadn't just framed a civilian, he had framed his boss. He had physically assaulted, sexually harassed, and falsely imprisoned the woman who now held his life in her hands. Captain," Bella stammered. "I believe you have something of mine," Naya said, holding out her hand. I don't. "My phone," she said, "and my car keys, unless you lost them during your thorough investigation on Friday." They're in evidence," Bella whispered. "Get them," she ordered. The command was like a whip crack. Bella scrambled backward, tripping over his own feet, running toward the evidence locker. Nia turned back to the room. The other officers were staring at her in shock. They knew. They had heard Bella bragging. They put the pieces together instantly. "Officer Miller," Nia said, turning to the rookie. Miller looked like he was going to vomit. Yes, ma'am." "Step forward." Miller stepped out, shaking. "You were the passenger in the cruiser on Friday," she said. "You saw what happened." "Yes, ma'am." "You saw Officer Bella plant that bag." The room gasped. The accusation was out in the open now. Miller looked at the door where Bella had fled, then back at the captain. He saw the end of his career before it even started. Tears welled up in his eyes. "Yes, ma'am," Miller whispered. "I saw it. I didn't know what to do." "We'll discuss your failure to intervene later," Naya said coldly. "But thank you for your honesty." "It will be noted." Bella came running back, holding a plastic bag with her phone and keys. He was sweating profusely, his uniform stained at the armpits. He held them out with a shaking hand. Nia took them. She didn't thank him. She leaned in close, so close, only he could hear, echoing the distance he had stood from her in the cell. "I read your report, Greg," she whispered, using his first name to strip him of his rank. "You said I was erratic. You said I was resisting. You said I was a criminal." She pulled back and raised her voice for the room. "Chief O'Connor, please place Officer Bella under immediate arrest." Bella's eyes bulged. "What? No, you can't." "This is entrapment." "It's not entrapment, officer," Naya said, her voice turning to ice. "It's a performance review, and you failed." Officer Greg Bella knew the geography of the 4th Precinct better than he knew the floor plan of his own house. He knew which vending machine stole quarters, which stairwell had a loose railing, and which holding cell had the worst draft. But he had never really known interrogation room B. To him, room B, affectionately nicknamed the sweatbox by the squad, was a place of power. It was where he sat with his boots up on the table drinking coffee, while a suspect chained to the floor wept and begged. It was a theater where he was the director, and the person across from him was just a prop. Today, however, the geography had shifted. The room was smaller than he remembered. The walls, painted a suffocating shade of institutional beige, seemed to press in on him. The air conditioning was humming a low, aggressive drone that drilled into his skull. And the metal chair he was cuffed to was freezing cold, biting through the thin fabric of his uniform trousers. Bella tugged at the handcuffs, secured to the steel loop on the table. Clang, clang. They held fast. "This is a mistake," he muttered to the empty room, his voice cracking. just a hazing ritual. The new captain is making a point. That's all." He tried to slow his breathing. He ran through the mental Rolodex of his rights. He was a police officer. He had the union. He had the Bill of Rights. He had the blue wall of silence. Even if Miller had snitched, it was the rookie's word against a 15-year veteran's. The union rep, a bulldog named Frank D'Amico, would walk through that door any minute, slap him on the back and tell him to take a paid suspension while this blew over. He watched the mirror. He knew they were watching him. He straightened his spine, trying to look bored, trying to look innocent. Buzz. The heavy steel door unlatched. Bella let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He fixed a defiant smirk on his face, ready to greet D'Amico. The door swung open. It wasn't D'Amico. Captain Nia Reynolds walked in. She moved with a predator's grace, silent, controlled, and terrifyingly calm. She didn't slam the door. She closed it softly, the click of the latch sounding like the cocking of a gun. She carried a thick, expandable legal file under one arm and a sleek, black tablet in her hand. She didn't look at Bella immediately. She walked to the far side of the table, pulled out the metal chair, and sat down. She placed the file on the table, aligning the edges perfectly with the corner. Then the tablet. Then a pen. Only then did she look at him. Her eyes were dark, unreadable pools. There was no anger in them, which scared Bella more than screaming would have. Anger implies emotion. This was purely clinical. "You can't question me," Bella blurted out, his bravado sounding thin. "I know my rights. I am invoking my right to counsel. I want Frank D'Amico from the union, and I want my attorney Michael Rossi. Until they get here, I'm mute." Nia didn't blink. She tapped the screen of her tablet, waking it up. "Mr. D'Amico has been notified." Nia said, her voice smooth and conversational. "He responded about 10 minutes ago. He said, and I quote, 'The Fraternal Order of Police defends officers acting in the line of duty. We do not represent individuals engaged in federal conspiracy against the department itself.' He wished you luck, Greg." Bella felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "That's a lie. The union defends everyone." "Not when the charges include RICO violations," Nia corrected him gently. "As for Mr. Rossi, well, he's a smart man. He usually takes a retainer. Do you have $50,000 available right now, Greg? Because your assets were frozen 20 minutes ago by a federal judge." "Frozen for what?" Bella shouted, rattling his chains. "I haven't even been charged yet." "Oh, you've been charged," Nia said. She opened the file folder. It was thick, hundreds of pages. She spun it around so he could see the top sheet. "United States District Court, Indictment USA versus Gregory Bella." Bella stared at the bold letters. The seal wasn't the local municipal court. It was the Department of Justice. "You think this is about Friday?" Nia asked, leaning back in her chair. "You think I just got lucky?" "You set me up," Bella spat. "You baited me. That's entrapment." Nia laughed softly. It was a dry, humorless sound. "Entrapment is when I coerce you to commit a crime you wouldn't otherwise commit. I didn't coerce you, Greg. I just drove down a street. You chose to profile me. You chose to pull me over. You chose to plant evidence. I just provided the canvas. You painted the picture." She swiped the screen of her tablet and turned it to face him. "But let's talk about why the union abandoned you. It's not because of me. It's because of this." On the screen, a grainy black-and-white video played. Bella squinted. The timestamp was from 3 weeks ago. The location was the precinct locker room, specifically the row of lockers near the showers. In the video, Bella walked into the frame. He looked around furtively, ensuring the coast was clear. He opened his locker, then reached into his pocket and pulled out an evidence bag, a bag clearly marked with a case number. He tore the seal. He took a pinch of white powder from the bag and funneled it into a small personal sandwich baggie. He then stuffed the sandwich baggie into his utility belt, the same pouch he had pulled the cocaine from on Friday. Bella's blood ran cold. He felt the room spin. That's illegal, he whispered, his voice trembling. You can't have cameras in the locker room. Expectation of privacy. Normally you'd be right, Nia agreed. But 6 months ago, we obtained a Title III federal warrant for electronic surveillance of this precinct. A judge signed off on it because we had probable cause that this station was operating as a criminal enterprise. We've been watching you for months, Greg. We have video of you planting drugs on a college student in May. We have audio of you shaking down a shop owner in June. Friday wasn't the beginning of the investigation. It was the finale. Bella slumped in his chair. The narrative he had built that he was a good cop who made one mistake was incinerated. They had everything. But here is the twist that is really going to keep you up at night, Nia said, leaning forward. Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. The bag you planted on me Friday. Where did you get it? It was from the Martinez seizure, Bella mumbled, looking at his lap. Cocaine, I kept a little back. Right, Nia nodded. Possession of a controlled substance. Distribution. Those are heavy charges. But Greg, the Martinez seizure wasn't cocaine. Bella looked up, confused. What the field test turned blue? Because we rigged the field test kits in your cruiser, Nia said simply. The Martinez bust was a controlled delivery by the FBI. The drugs were powdered drywall mix and baking soda, inert, harmless. Bella's eyes widened. A flicker of hope sparked in his chest. Wait, if it wasn't drugs, then I can't be charged with possession. I can't be charged with trafficking. You have nothing. It was fake. He almost laughed. He thought he saw a loophole. If the drugs weren't real, the crime wasn't real. Nia watched his hope rise, waiting for the perfect moment to crush it. You're not a lawyer, are you? Greg, she asked. If it's not coke, it's not a felony. Bella insisted, sitting up straighter. Actually, Nia said, her voice hard as steel. The fact that it was fake makes your situation significantly worse. See, if it were real cocaine, you could have argued that you found it. You could have argued it was mine. A jury might have doubt. She paused, letting the silence hang heavy in the air. But because the substance was drywall dust, a substance that exists nowhere in my car, nowhere in my life, the only way it could have ended up in that baggie is if you put it there. The fake drugs prove beyond a shadow of a doubt the specific intent to frame. It proves men's rare guilty mind. She tapped the indictment on the table. This isn't a drug case, Greg. This is a civil rights case. By planting fake evidence to imprison a citizen, you violated Title 18, U.S. Code, Section 242, Deprivation of Rights under color of law. Because you kidnapped me, yes, putting me in that car was kidnapping, and falsified a federal report. The mandatory minimum sentencing guidelines don't start at 2 years. They start at 15. The color drained from Bella's face so completely he looked like a corpse. The loophole had snapped shut around his neck. 15 years, he rasped. I have kids. I have a mortgage. You should have thought about that when you threatened to drag me out of my car, Nia said without sympathy. You should have thought about that when you squeezed my wrists until they bruised. You felt powerful then, didn't you? You thought I was nobody. Nia stood up. She walked around the table and stood behind him. Bella flinched, expecting a blow, but she just leaned down, her voice a whisper in his ear. I sat in that cell all weekend, Greg. I listened to you laugh about me. I listened to you tell Miller to lie. And I want you to know something. I wasn't scared. I wasn't worried. I was counting. Counting what? Bella breathed. I was counting the number of policies you violated, the number of laws you broke, and the number of years you were going to lose. She walked back to the door and knocked twice. The guard outside opened it. The FBI is waiting in the lobby to take custody, Naya said formally. But before they take you, I have one last piece of administrative business. She pulled a single sheet of paper from the file. This is a termination notice, she said. Effective immediately, you are fired from the Oak Creek Police Department for conduct unbecoming of an officer and commission of a felony. You are stripped of your rank. You are stripped of your badge number. It will be retired not in honor, but in disgrace. She slid the paper and a pen toward him. You don't have to sign it, Naya said. It's valid either way. But if you have one shred of dignity, left one tiny speck of respect for the uniform you disgraced, you will sign it and admit that you are no longer fit to wear it. Bella looked at the paper. His hands were shaking so hard, the handcuffs rattled against the table like chattering teeth. He looked at the camera. He looked at the mirror. He looked at Naya. He saw no mercy. He saw only the mirror image of his own cruelty reflected back at him by the law. He picked up the pen. It felt heavy, like a lead weight. With a trembling hand, he scratched his signature. Greg Bella. He dropped the pen. Get him out of my station. Captain Reynolds ordered the guard. As the guard hauled Bella up, the former officer couldn't even walk straight. His legs were numb, his spirit broken. He was dragged out of the sweatbox into the hallway, where he used to strut like a king, now just another criminal in the system he had tried to weaponize. Nia stayed in the room for a moment longer. She looked at the empty chair. She picked up her file and her tablet. She took a deep breath, exhaling the tension of the last 3 days. Then she straightened her uniform, adjusted her gold captain's bars, and walked out to address her squad. The interrogation was over. The cleanup had just begun. The trial of United States versus Gregory Bella was not just a legal proceeding. It was a public spectacle. The federal courthouse in the city center was surrounded by news vans from every major network. The headline, "The Captain in Cuffs," had gone viral globally, turning Officer Bella into the face of police corruption and Captain Naya Reynolds into an icon of unshakable integrity. Inside courtroom 4B, the air was thick enough to choke on. Greg Bella sat at the defense table, but he looked nothing like the arrogant bully who had patrolled the streets of Oak Creek. The weeks in federal remand had hollowed him out. His suit, purchased by a court-appointed public defender named Arthur Pendleton, hung loosely on his frame. His skin was sallow, his eyes darting nervously around the room. He had expected the police union to rally behind him to fund a dream team defense. Instead, they had cut him loose the moment the locker room tapes surfaced. He was radioactive. The presiding judge, the Honorable Harrison Cole, a man known for his severe sentences and zero tolerance for abuse of power, entered the chamber. The bailiff cried out, and the room stood. "Be seated," Judge Cole intoned his voice, gravelly and deep. The trial had lasted 4 grueling days. The prosecution, led by relentless Assistant U.S. Attorney Sarah Jenkins, had systematically dismantled Bella's life. She hadn't just proven he was guilty. She had exposed his soul. The final nail in the coffin wasn't the video or the audio logs. It was the testimony of rookie officer Ben Miller. Bella remembered looking at Miller on the stand yesterday. He had tried to intimidate the kid staring daggers into him, mouthing the word traitor. But Miller, pale and shaking, had looked directly at the jury and delivered the death blow. I wanted to say something. Miller had testified, tears streaming down his face. I knew it was wrong. I knew the captain hadn't been speeding. I knew he planted that bag, but Officer Bella told me that if I didn't write the report his way, he'd make sure I never worked in law enforcement again. He said the badge makes us gods. That line, "The badge makes us gods," had echoed in the courtroom. It was the sound of Bella's career shattering. Now it was time for the verdict. The jury filed back in. They had deliberated for less than 3 hours, a terrifyingly short amount of time. Usually a quick verdict meant a conviction. Bella's hands trembled so violently he had to clasp them together on the table to stop the wood from vibrating. "Mr. Foreman," Judge Cole asked, "have you reached a verdict?" The jury foreman, a middle-aged school teacher with stern glasses, stood up. He didn't look at Bella. Jurors never look at the defendant when they are about to convict. "We have your honor. Publish the verdict. In the matter of the United States versus Gregory Bella," the foreman read his voice steady. "On count 1 deprivation of rights under color of law, we find the defendant guilty." Bella flinched as if he'd been slapped. "On count 2, falsification of records in a federal investigation, guilty. On count 3, conspiracy to violate civil rights, guilty." The guilties kept coming, 7 counts in total. Each one was a hammer blow driving him further into the ground. Bella closed his eyes, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. He felt a hand on his shoulder, his lawyer, Pendleton, whispering something about an appeal, but the words sounded like they were underwater. "Sentencing will commence immediately, as per the federal expedited guidelines for public corruption cases," Judge Cole stated, setting aside the verdict form. He took off his reading glasses and looked down at the defense table. "Does the defendant wish to make a statement?" Bella stood up. His legs felt like jelly. He walked to the podium. This was his chance. He had rehearsed a speech about stress, about the difficulties of the job, about how one mistake shouldn't define a career. But when he looked up, he saw her. Captain Nia Reynolds was sitting in the front row of the gallery, directly behind the prosecution table. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't gloating. She was watching him with a clinical, detached interest, like a scientist observing a bug under a microscope. She wore her dress uniform, the gold bars on her shoulders, catching the courtroom lights. Bella's throat closed up. The excuses died in his mouth. Bella croaked. "I just wanted to keep the streets safe. I made a mistake." "A mistake," Judge Cole interrupted, his voice rising. "A mistake is forgetting to use your turn signal, Mr. Bella. Systematically targeting citizens, planting evidence, and falsifying reports is not a mistake. It is a calculation. It is a predator choosing prey." The judge leaned forward, his face hardening into stone. "You targeted Captain Reynolds because of her race and her gender. You assumed that because she was a black woman in a luxury car, she was a criminal. You assumed that because you wore a badge, you were untouchable. You were wrong on both counts." Judge Cole picked up a document. "The pre-sentencing report suggests leniency due to your years of service. I am rejecting that recommendation. Your years of service are an aggravating factor, not a mitigating one. You knew the law better than anyone, and you chose to weaponize it." The courtroom held its collective breath. "Gregory Bella, I sentence you to 18 years in a federal correctional facility. You will not be eligible for parole for at least 15 years. Bella's knees buckled. He grabbed the podium to stay upright. 18 years. He would be an old man when he got out. "Furthermore," the judge continued, twisting the knife, "under the Pension Forfeiture Act, your police pension is hereby seized in its entirety to pay for court costs and restitution to the victim. You leave this courtroom destitute." A gasp went through the gallery. The pension was the holy grail for cops, the reward for 20 years on the job. In seconds, 15 years of work had been erased. He had no savings. He had no house. He had mortgaged it to pay for his initial bail. He had nothing. "Remand the defendant into custody," Judge Cole ordered. The bailiffs moved in fast. There was no professional courtesy this time. They grabbed Bella's arms and pulled them behind his back. The sound of handcuffs ratcheting tight click, click, click was the loudest sound in the world. As they marched him toward the side door, leading to the holding cells, Bella looked back one last time. He wanted to scream at Nia, to curse her, to blame her for ruining his life. Nia stood up. She looked him in the eye and gave a single slow nod. It wasn't a nod of forgiveness. It was a nod of finality. Game over. Bella slumped. He let the bailiffs drag him through the door, and the heavy wood slammed shut, sealing his fate. 6 months later. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of the captain's office at the 4th Precinct. It was a crisp autumn day. The precinct didn't smell like stale coffee and secrets anymore. It smelled of floor wax and open windows. Captain Nia Reynolds sat at her mahogany desk reviewing the monthly stats. Complaints against officers were down 80%. Community engagement was up. The toxic boys' club culture that Bella had thrived in had been scrubbed away with bleach and hard work. There was a knock on the doorframe. "Captain," Nia looked up. It was Officer Ben Miller. He looked different than the terrified rookie on the witness stand. He had gained a few pounds of muscle, and he stood with his shoulders back. He was no longer a rookie. He was a probationary officer who had been given a second chance, a chance he earned every single day. "Report Miller," Nia said, closing the file. "We just finished the morning patrol briefing, ma'am," Miller said. "And I got a letter today." Miller walked forward and placed a crumpled envelope on her desk. The return address was stamped in red ink, USP Leavenworth, inmate mail. It was from Bella. "I didn't open it," Miller said quietly. "I don't want to hear anything he has to say." Nia picked up the envelope. She felt the weight of it. She didn't need to open it to know what it said. It would be begging. It would be him asking for a character reference for an appeal, or asking Miller to send money to his commissary account because he couldn't afford toothpaste. Nia stood up, walked over to the shredder in the corner of her office, and fed the unopened envelope into the machine. The blades whirred, slicing the last remnant of Greg Bella into confetti. "Good choice, Miller," Nia said. "We don't look back here. We look forward." "Yes, ma'am." Miller smiled, looking relieved. "Oh, and the mayor is outside. He wants to take a photo with the Model Precinct of the Year team." Nia grabbed her hat and adjusted the brim. She caught her reflection in the glass of her diploma on the wall. She remembered the feeling of the cold handcuffs Bella had put on her wrists that Friday afternoon. She remembered the humiliation, but then she looked at the precinct beyond her door, a place where families now came to report crimes without fear, where officers walked with true pride, not arrogance. She had turned her own trauma into their salvation. "Let's go," Nia said, walking out into the bullpen. As she passed the front desk, she saw a new plaque bolted to the wall where Bella used to lean and tell his lies. It was a quote from Martin Luther King Jr., polished in brass. "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." Nia tapped the sign lightly as she walked out into the sunlight. Karma hadn't just hit back. It had cleaned house. We often think that power protects people from consequences, but Greg Bella learned the hard way that arrogance is the fastest path to destruction. He thought he was hunting a victim, but he was actually hunting his own career. Captain Nia Reynolds proved that true strength isn't about how loud you yell or how hard you slam the handcuffs. It's about integrity, patience, and the intelligence to let your enemies defeat themselves. If you enjoyed this story of massive karma and justice, served cold, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. What would you have done if you were in Naya's shoes? Would you have revealed yourself immediately, or waited for the perfect moment like she did? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Thanks for watching.